The Masnavi, or Masnavi-I Ma'navi, also written Masnavi-I Ma'navi, or Mathnavi, is an extensive poem written in Persian by Jalal al-Din Muhammad Balkhi, also known as Rumi, the celebrated Persian Sufi saint and poet. It is one of the best-known and most influential works of both Sufism and Farsi Dari literature. The Masnavi is a series of 6 books of poetry that together amount to around 25,000 verses or 50,000 lines. It is a spiritual writing that teaches Sufis how to reach the goal of being in true love with God. General description. The title Masnavi-I Ma'navi means in Arabic, rhyming couplets of profound spiritual meaning. The Masnavi is a poetic collection of anecdotes and stories derived from the Quran, hadith sources, and everyday tales. Stories are told to illustrate a point and each moral is discussed in detail. It incorporates a variety of Islamic wisdom but primarily focuses on emphasizing inward personal Sufi interpretation. This work by Balkhi is referred to as a sober Sufi text. It reasonably presents the various dimensions of Sufi spiritual life and advises disciples on the spiritual paths. More generally, it is aimed at anyone who has time to sit down and ponder the meaning of life and existence. Quote, "The Masnavi is left unfinished by its author and is later completed by Mufti Balkh Konya. Creation of the Masnavi. The Masnavi is a Sufi masterpiece which was started by the Rumi during the final years of his life. He began dictating the first book around the age of 54 around the year 1258 and continued composing verses until his death in 1273. The 6th and final book would remain incomplete. It is documented that Rumi began dictating the verses of the Masnavi at the request of his treasured disciple Husam al-Din Chalabi, who observed that many of Rumi's followers dutifully read the works of Sani and Atta. Thus, Rumi began creating a work in the didactic style of Sani and Atta to complement his other poetry. These men met regularly in meetings where Rumi would deliver the verses and Chalabi would record it and recite back to him. During the final years of Rumi's life, the Masnavi was being created. Each book consists of about 4,000 verses and contains its own prose introduction and prologue. Considering there are no epilogues, one must read the preceding volumes to fully benefit from the wisdom presented by Rumi. Some scholars suggest that in addition to the incomplete work of Book 6, there might be a 7th volume. Themes in the Masnavi. The 6 books of the Masnavi can be divided into 3 groups of 2 because each pair is linked by a common theme. Books 1 and 2, they are principally concerned with the nafs, the lower carnal self, and its self-deception and evil tendencies. Quote, Books 3 and 4, these books share the principal themes of reason and knowledge. These 2 themes are personified by Rumi in the biblical and Quranic figure of the Prophet Moses. Books 5 and 6, these last 2 books are joined by the universal ideal that man must deny his physical earthly existence to understand God's existence. In addition to the recurring themes presented in each book, Rumi includes multiple points of view or voices that continually invite his readers to fall into imaginative enchantment. Quote, there are 7 principal voices that Rumi uses in his writing. The authorial voice. Each passage reflects the authority of the majestic Sufi teacher narrating the story. This voice generally appears when it addresses you, God, and you, of all humankind. The storytelling voice. The primary story is occasionally interrupted by side stories that help clarify a point being made in the original statement. Rumi sometimes takes hundreds of lines to make a point because he is constantly interrupting himself. The analogical voice. This voice interrupts the flow of the narration because it entertains an analogy which is used to explain a statement made in the previous verse. Rumi's Masnavi is filled with analogies, the voice of speech and dialogue of characters. Rumi conveys many of his stories through dialogue and speeches presented by his characters. The moral reflection. Rumi supports his voice of morality by including quotations from the Quran and various hadith stories of events in the life of the Prophet Muhammad. The spiritual discourse. The spiritual discourse resembles the analogical voice, where Rumi always includes a moral reflection on the wisdom revealed. Hiatus. Rumi occasionally questions the wisdom conveyed through the verses. Sometimes Rumi says that he cannot say all because of the reader's incapacity to understand. English translations. Mathnawi Rumi. Translation with commentary by M. G. Gupta with Rajiv. In 6 volumes hardbound edition. M. G. Publishers. Agra. Paperback edition. Huma Books. 34 Hyderabad Colony. Agra 280 2005. India. Source material is the Farsi Dari text circulated by the Department of Culture, Government of India, New Delhi. The Masnavi of Mevlānā Jalaluddin Rumi. Book first, together with some account of the life and acts of the author, of his ancestors, and of his descendants, illustrated by a selection of characteristic anecdotes, as collected by the historian Mevlānā Shamsuddin Ahmad al-Aflaki al-Harafi, translated, and the poetry versified by James W. Redhouse, London, 1881. Contains the translation of the first book only. Masnavi-I Ma'navi, the spiritual couplets of Maulana Jalaluddin Muhammad Balkhi, translated and abridged by E.H. Winfield, London, 1887-1989. Abridged version from the complete poem. Online editions at Sacred Texts and on Wikisource. The Masnavi by Jalaluddin Balkhi Rumi. Book 2, translated for the first time from the Persian into prose, with a commentary by C.E. Wilson, London, 1910. The Mathnawi of Jalaluddin Balkhi, edited from the oldest manuscripts available, with critical notes, translation and commentary by Reynold A. Nicholson, in 8 volumes. London, Messrs. Luzak and Ampco, 1925–1940. Contains the text in Persian. First complete English translation of the Mathnawi. The Masnavi. Book 1, translated by Jawad Mojaddedi, Oxford World's Classics Series, Oxford University Press, 2004, ISBN 0-19-280438-3. Translated for the first time from the Persian edition prepared by Muhammad Balkhī, with an introduction and explanatory notes. Awarded the 2004 Lois Roth Prize for Excellence in Translation of Persian Literature by the American Institute of Iranian Studies. Balkhi, Spiritual Verses, the first book of the Masnavi-I Ma'navi, newly translated from the latest Persian edition of M. Esther Army, with an introduction on a reader's approach to Balkhi's writing, and with explanatory notes by Alan Williams, London and New York. Penguin Classics, Penguin XXXV plus 422 pp. 2006 ISBN 0-14-04479111. The Masnavi. Book 2, translated by Jawad Mojaddedi, Oxford World's Classics Series, Oxford University Press, 2007, ISBN 9780199212590. The first ever verse translation of the unabridged text of Book 2, with an introduction and explanatory notes. Paraphrases of English translations. The Essential Balkhi, translated by Coleman Barks with John Moyne, A. J. Arbery, Reynold Nicholson, San Francisco, HarperCollins, 1996, ISBN 006-250959-4, Edison and New York, Castle Books, 1997, ISBN 0-78580871-X. Selections. The Illuminated Balkhi, translated by Coleman Barks, Michael Green, contributor, New York, Broadway Books, 1997, ISBN 0-7679-00022. Russian translation. A Russian translation of the Masnavi was unveiled in the Russian State Library in 2012.